Okay, today in Tracts and Pamphlets we are going to look at this, the Atheist Test. This was being given out by some evangelical Baptist street preachers in my town of Watford here in the UK. I've seen this before. See, it's only tiny. But I think it's very important that we take the Atheist Test together. Bang! That's obviously the Big Bang. The theory of evolution of the Coca-Cola can. Billions of years ago, a Big Bang produced a large rock. As the rock cooled, sweet brown liquid formed on its surface. As time passed, aluminum formed itself into a can, a lid, and a tab. Millions of years later, red and white paint fell from the sky and formed itself into the words Coca-Cola, 12 fluid ounces. Of course, my theory is an insult to your intellect. Yes, it is. Because you know that if the Coca-Cola can is made, there must be a maker. You can see where this is going, can't you? If it is designed, there must be a designer. The alternative, that it happened by chance or accident, is to move into an intellectual free zone. We'll see about that. Oh! Now, to anyone who has ever seen evangelist Ray Comfort, he has used this, the banana, the atheist nightmare. Now, for those of you who don't know about this, why would the simple banana be the atheist nightmare? Okay, now we have a little diagram here, and note that the banana, 1, is shaped for the human hand, has a non-slip surface, amazing, has outward indicators of inward contents, green, it's too early, yellow, just right, black, too late, wow. 4, has a tab for removal of the wrapper. 6, biodegradable wrapper. 7, is shaped for the human mouth. 8, has a point at the top for ease of entry. Okay, this is getting a bit weird. 9, is pleasing to the taste buds. 10, is curved towards the face to make the eating process easy. Seriously. Okay, well, first of all, the banana didn't always look that way. It's been around for a very long time since it evolved, but people cultivating it about 2,000 years, maybe 5,000 years, and it started off very different. It was quite lumpish, it was always green, a little bit furry, and then as mankind, I guess you could say genetically manipulated it, crossbreeded it, they changed it into the more consumer-friendly shape we have today. So this is man's doing, this shape. Of course, you can see where they're going. They're saying, see what God has done? Okay, yeah, let's just say that's true. The banana is shaped exactly for a human being to eat it. Okay, what about all the other fruits? What about, for instance, a watermelon? I mean, that's not exactly shaped to fit right into the human mouth, unless you have a very big mouth. So they're just taking one instance, the banana, and saying, see, a God must have done that for you. No. Really, what you're talking about is due to man's intellect, science, and innovation. Let's continue. To say that the banana happened by accident is even more unintelligent than to say that no one designed the Coca-Cola can. See, they're setting up their straw man argument here. Test 1. Okay. The person who thinks a Coca-Cola can has no designer is A, intelligent, B, a fool, C, has an ulterior motive for denying the obvious. That's an odd thing to say in this, ulterior motive. Did you know that the eye, oh here we go, did you know that the eye has 40 million nerve endings? The focusing muscles move an estimated 100,000 times a day, and the retina contains 137 million light-sensitive cells. No, I didn't know that, but I'm not too surprised. Now, this is where they like to quote mine from respected atheist or secular icons like Einstein, like here, Darwin. Charles Darwin said, "To suppose that the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree." You can bet that this has been taken out of context. In fact, it has been taken out of context, because the actual quote, it goes on to say that it does seem absurd at first, but when you take into account how evolution works, that lesser animals with perhaps a small cluster of light-sensitive cells, which can see just light and dark, and distinguish between that, evolve into something more complex, where you can see rudimentary images, or like us, where you can see stereoscopically. Then, once you take that into context, then what he went on to say is then it doesn't seem so absurd after all. But they just chose that bit that they like. If a man cannot begin to make a human eye, how could anyone in his right mind think that eyes formed by mere chance? In fact, man cannot make anything from nothing. We don't know how to do it. We can recreate, reform, develop, but we cannot create even one grain of sand from nothing. Yet the eye is only a small part of the sophisticated part of creation. Note how they use the word creation as though it's a given. Creation implies a creator. They should say existence. Okay, most sophisticated part of creation, the human body. Okay, George Gallup, the famous statistician said, they like saying, oh, we're quoting from this famous person who agrees with us. "I could prove God statistically. Take the human body alone. The chance that all the functions of the individual would just happen is a statistical monstrosity." Yeah, it would be if, I suppose this guy was a believer, I don't know, but if you believe or think that human beings came about 100 years ago, just as we are, that would be a monstrosity. That would be crazy. Most Christian theists think we've only been around 6,000 years. Of course, we know we've been around millions of years, the human race, evolving from one thing into another thing, at least our particular line. So no, we didn't just happen. And because they can't see it, because they can't see things evolving, they say evolution doesn't exist, despite all the scientific evidence, when we go back and back and back into the fossil record and match things up. And, oh, of course, Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, yes, Albert Einstein said, "Everyone who is seriously interested in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to man, and one in the face of which our modest powers must feel humble." Again, this is taken out of context, because if you read the original, I think it was a letter he was writing to a fellow scientist, or he was writing anyway to someone. Yes, he does say something along these lines, but then it goes on to say, similar to the Darwin quote, that yes, some people think this, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And again, it has to do also with interpretation and how it's been translated, in this case from the original German. But it doesn't actually in any way say anything to make out that he's a believer, because he was not. He said he was an agnostic. This thing which Christians will say that, oh, did you know Einstein converted to Christianity on his deathbed? That is apocryphal. That is something a Christian made up. And you'll notice a lot of the actual phraseology in this booklet and other booklets like these. Christians and evangelists and street preachers, they will say it to you, and just ordinary church-going Christians who are trying to convert you, they will they will say almost line for line certain things from these tracts. I'm convinced that's where their rhetoric comes from. They don't think themselves, they read one of these and just parrot it. Because it must be right, huh? Oh, here we go. Test 2. Do you know of any building that didn't have a builder? Yes or no? Do you know of any painting that didn't have a painter? Yes or no? Do you know of any car that didn't have a maker? Yes or no? If you answered yes for any of the above, give details. Yeah, I'm not going to dignify that. Okay. Could I convince you that I dropped 50 oranges onto the ground, and then by chance, they fell into 10 rows of 5 oranges? You know, it's not impossible, but it's unlikely. The logical conclusion is that someone with an intelligent mind put them there. The odds that 10 oranges could fall by accident into a straight line are mind-boggling, let alone 10 rows of 5. What are they setting up here? Oh, another test. Test 3. A. From the atom to the universe, is there order? Yes or no? B. Did it happen by accident, or must there have been an intelligent mind? C. What are the odds of 50 oranges falling by chance into 10 rows of 5 oranges? See, they're putting that there because they just want you to, they know you're going to say it's very unlikely. And then they hope you'll look back at that and say, oh, well, it must have been somebody who put it there. Okay. The declaration, there is no God, is what is known as an absolute statement. For an absolute statement to be true, I must have absolute knowledge. Here is another absolute statement. There is no gold in China. Another test. It's bad as school. What do I need to have for that statement to be true? A. No knowledge of China. B. Partial knowledge of China. C. Absolute knowledge of China. Yes, C is the correct answer. For the statement to be true, I must know that there is no gold in China, or the statement is incorrect. To say there is no God, and to be correct in the statement, I must be omniscient. I must know everything. What they seem to be forgetting here is you also have to have absolute knowledge, that is, knowledge of everything, omniscient knowledge, to be able to say that there is a God. Because despite their holy books and their fuzzy feelings in their chests and their so-called answers to prayers, there is no extant evidence of a God anywhere. Go into any church. Doesn't even have to be a Christian church. Go into any temple, mosque, whatever. Look for their deity. Look for an angel. There's nothing there. There's just people. There's just people. Okay. I must know how many hairs are upon every head. Every thought of every human heart. Every detail of history. Every atom within every rock. Nothing is hidden from my eyes. I know the intimate details of the secret love life of the fleas on the back of the black cat of Napoleon's great-grandmother. To make the absolute statement, there is no God, I must have absolute knowledge that there isn't one. Yeah, or is one. Let's say that this circle, if you can call that a circle, represents all the knowledge in the entire universe. Let's assume that you have an incredible 1% of all that knowledge. Is it possible that in the knowledge you haven't yet come across, there is ample evidence to prove that God does indeed exist? Okay, what are they asking here? Okay, this is everything, all the knowledge in the universe. That little sliver there, they're saying, is it possible that there's evidence, ample evidence, to prove that God does indeed exist? There could be. I haven't come across it this time, or any time. If you're reasonable, they're telling me that, you will have to say, having the limited knowledge that I have at present, I believe that there is no God. I agree. In other words, you don't know if God exists. So you are not an atheist. They hate the word atheist. You are what is commonly known as an agnostic. Now, atheist or atheist, that just means without belief. Agnostic means without knowledge. That's kind of the same thing to me. I don't know what they're so worried about. Of course, what they're implying here is that you can get that knowledge through the Bible, of course. You are like a man who looks at a building and doesn't know if there was a builder. No, I don't agree with that, because everybody, I don't know, except maybe a baby, would look at a building and say, well, yeah, there's a builder. And there's records of him. I could probably go to his house and meet him. I could see photographs of him in the hard hat building the damn thing. You can't really do that with God. You can't look up his Facebook page. Test 5. The man who sees a building and doesn't know if there was a builder is A, intelligent, B, a fool, C, has an ulterior motive. That's interesting. That they should, again, refer to an ulterior motive, which makes me think the people who wrote this are convinced that non-believers have an ulterior motive. Now, what could that be? Let's see. Oh, the TV set analogy. Perhaps you have questions that hold you back from your faith. First, almost every question you have about suffering humanity, etc., can be adequately answered. No, it can't. Really. So they're telling me that all the diseases on the earth, all the earthquakes, all the infants that die can be explained adequately in the Bible. What they'll say, of course, is that humankind sinned, beginning with Adam and Eve, and being told not to touch the tree, and then she touches the tree and eats the apple, and then God said, let there be Ebola and tornadoes. That is pretty much it, really. Second, we have faith in plenty of things we don't understand. Did you understand the mechanics of television before you turned it on? Probably not. You took a step of faith, turned it on, and after it worked, understanding how it worked wasn't that important. We accept that there are unseen television waves right in front of our eyes. This is a terrible straw man argument. We can't see them because they are invisible. For them to manifest, we need a receiver. Then we can enjoy the experience of television. I know where this is going. It's all going to be about taking a step of faith, asking God if he's real. I get asked to do this all the time by religious folk. You can't compare it to a television because the television is there. You have seen other people turn it on. It's got buttons and knobs on it. You can read about how television waves work. Again, they're setting up a false analogy. Okay. God is not flesh and blood. He is an eternal spirit, immortal and invisible. How do you know this? Like the television waves, he cannot be experienced until the receiver, that's us, is switched on. Here is something you will find hard to believe. Jesus said, yeah, I don't believe it already. He who has my commandments and keeps them, he it is who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father. And I will love him and manifest myself to him. That's John 14:21, which is in the Gospels of the New Testament. Now, either that's true or it isn't. Well, it's true that someone wrote that down. Okay, that's all we really know. Jesus Christ says that he will manifest himself to anyone who obeys him. Approach the subject the same way you approached your first television set. Just take a small step of faith. If it works, enjoy it. If it doesn't, forget it. Okay, approach the subject the way you approached your first television set. Now, what they're really saying is, what I get asked all the time is, they say to me, just ask God to tell you, to show you that he's real, and he will show you. Well, I can never, ever do that. Now, if I was to ask God, please show me that you're real, I've already taken that step of believing. You know, if I've said to the street preachers, I've said, okay, will you go away and ask Krishna, the Hindu god, if he's real, just to make sure. And of course they say no, they won't do it. In the same way, I'm not going to do it. People who do that, and in fact, people who, do all the tests in here, and usually people who read these books all the way to the ends and do these sort of thought experiments, they've already made up their mind somewhere in the back of their mind that they are going to be a Christian. Just so like what they're asking here. Okay, we're getting to the end. And then it comes to the give your heart to Jesus and yada yada yada. Oh, here we go. Or have you an ulterior motive? Could it be that the atheist can't find God for the same reason that a thief can't find a policeman? Huh? Could it be that your love for sin, oh, this old chestnut, is clouding your good judgment? Yes, that's right. You see, because if you are an atheist, if you haven't accepted God and you're always an atheist, or if you were a believer and became an atheist, it's because you love your sin. Without God, we just go off raping, killing, pillaging, doing every bad thing. And if you're a Christian or a believer, that's it. You're perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay. If the Bible is true and Jesus Christ has abolished death and brought life and immortality to light through the gospel, then you owe it to yourself just to check it out. This is almost like Pascal's wager. You know, it's better off to believe than not believe, because if you don't, you might end up in hell. That old nonsense. Anyway, here is how to do that. Test 6. I think this must be the final test. With a tender conscience, check this list of the 10 Commandments. Have I always loved my Creator with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength? No. Have I made a God in my own image, a God to suit myself? No, not really, unless you count my television and surround system. It's kind of a God to me. Have I ever used God's name in vain? Jesus Christ, I certainly have. Have I kept the Sabbath holy? Yes, Sunday is pretty sacred to me. I need to stay in bed to at least 12. Have I always honored my parents implicitly? No, but then again, what kid does? Have I murdered? A few insects. Have I committed adultery? Includes premarital sex and lust. Yes, I'm human. Have I stolen? Cookie from a cookie jar, does that count when I was a kid? Have I lied, including fibs and these questions? Have I lied? Everybody lies. You know, it could be a white lie. I wonder if that counts. Have I coveted, been greedy or materialistic? Yeah, but so what? We've got this thing inside of us called, self-preservation, and a need to expand our horizons. If you decide to go and steal something, okay. If you covet it, you just want something. Does that include, like, wanting food if you're hungry? Is that coveting? Okay, guilty. It's funny how they knew that the reader would be guilty. Of course, we're all sinners. That's what they're getting to. So they've entrapped any fence-sitter or heathen that has read this book. If you have even broken one law, then you have sinned against God and therefore will surely die. Nice. For the wages of sin is death. That's something you'll hear a lot from these street preachers. They like to shout it at people as they go here, there, and everywhere. We are all guilty of breaking the commandments. Which ones? Because there's actually 2 lists of commandments. Moses breaks the first law, and then there's another one, isn't there? But we'll go into that another time. Listen to the voice of your conscience, and let it remind you of some of the sins of the past. We are not perfect, as we are commanded to be, in Matthew 5:48. Neither is our heart pure. On Judgment Day, our transgressions will be evidence of our shame. Think of it. God has seen every sin we have ever committed. We share our thought life with him. So we're talking like worse than Big Brother. This is thought police here, thought policing. So let's do a thought experiment right now. Let's just say you've lived to be 80 years old. You've been a humanitarian. You've been very, very kind to people, lived a good life, very generous, helped the homeless, the poor. You have kept all God's commandments as well. Let's just put that into the mix as well. But when you were 5, you stole that cookie from the cookie jar. Or when you were 8, I don't know, whenever. You're going to burn in hell forever. Because you broke one law. I don't know if I was a father if I would be quite that strict. We are guilty of violating his law a multitude of times. Yet if we repent, God can forgive us because Jesus stepped into the courtroom 2,000 years ago and paid the fine for us. Of course, they're talking about the good old blood sacrifice known as the crucifixion, which to me is just a radical pissed off the Romans at the time and got punished for it. But somehow over the centuries that's transmuted into he was actually a sacrifice for our sins. A bloody, horrible, painful sacrifice which God thought of. He couldn't think of anything else. He had to think of this. More blood, more pain. And there's lots of it in the Bible. Oh, now this page, the ink has suddenly become blue. This must be important. His death on the cross satisfied the laws we so blatantly transgressed, and at the same time demonstrated how much God loves us. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. We've all heard that. Is that John 3:16? I think it is. His shed blood on a cross can make you clean in the sight of a holy God. Because you have to be perfect before this God. See, he made us. He made us imperfect. And then blames us when we behave imperfectly. His shed blood on the cross can make you clean as though you have never sinned. God doesn't want you to go to hell. Now, he made the place. He allows people to go there. He allows this eternal torment where you burn forever without actually being consumed. You burn forever. Please forget your arguments. Repent and put your trust in Jesus. Be saved from God's wrath. That's right. Don't argue. Don't employ any critical thinking. Don't ask yourself where anything in this holy book is true. The talking snake, the talking donkey, the flooded earth, man walked on water. Yeah, just don't argue. Make Psalm 51 your prayer, and then read the Bible daily and always obey what you read. Because that's how indoctrination starts. God will never let you down. God will never let you down. Now let me think of all the prayers I used to pray from when I used to know how to speak to age 21. How many times did God let me down? Wow, that's a lot of times. Thank you for taking the time to read this booklet. Well, unless you're someone like me, you're reading something like this because in the back of your mind you've already decided you want to be a Christian. You want to belong to a community. And often that's what it's all about, belonging to a community. You could be down on your luck. You could have fallen out with your loved one, coming out of a bad relationship. Perhaps you're into drugs. And then someone knocks on your door. It could be a Jehovah's Witness. It could be a Mormon. It could be a Seventh-day Adventist. And next thing you know, you're being love-bombed. You got to watch out for that. All these people wanting to love you and take care of you. Come along to our church. Come along to our revival service. Come along to this meeting. And next thing you know, you're sucked in by all the singing and everything. And that's where the indoctrination starts. It's not a brilliant way to solve your problems. It's good in some ways because of the community and the picnics and yada yada. But it's all based on something which is not demonstrably true. And that's all I would say. So, that's the Atheist Test. Did you pass?